Penguin Random House Audio presents America Second, How America's Elites Are Making China Stronger by Isaac Stone Fish, read for you by William Demeritt. To my Grandma Sandy, who taught me that sharks don't sleep. Introduction. Consider Grindr. Yes, that Grindr. The dating and hookup app that revolutionized gay culture in America. In January 2018, the private Chinese technology firm Beijing Quanwen acquired Grindr. The Chinese government will not have access to your account, Grindr said in a May 2017 blog post. Beijing Quanwen is not owned by the Chinese government. Indeed, Quanwen is a private company, and its founder, Zhou Yahui, is known in China mostly for having amassed enough wealth to have spent $1.1 billion on a divorce. He's not seen as especially beholden to the ruling Chinese Communist Party. But Grindr was lying. Because a Chinese company owned all of Grindr's data, photographs, and messages, the party could access all of that information regardless of where it's stored. And that data includes compromising photos and messages from some of America's most powerful men, some openly gay, and some closeted. Couple this with China's continued innovations in facial recognition, an industry more advanced there than in the United States, and there are some fascinating and concerning national security implications. Crudely put, Beijing could now access the dick pics of millions of Americans. In 2011, the then U.S. Congressman Anthony Weiner tweeted a lewd photograph, setting off a chain of events that led to his 2017 imprisonment. Beijing can blackmail a closeted congressman who does not want to be Weiner 2.0. In many ways, Grindr under Chinese ownership was a disaster. Grindr's new president, Scott Chen, was a terrible fit for the culture. He even announced on Facebook that he opposed gay marriage. While it's unknown if the Chinese government has accessed Grindr data, Reuters found that Grindr gave Beijing-based engineers access to the personal information, including private messages and HIV status, of millions of Americans. In March 2019, amid growing unease about Beijing's influence in America, the government body, the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States, CFIUS, ordered Quanwen to unwind the deal. A year later, Quanwen sold Grindr to an American investment firm. National security types rejoiced. But the story doesn't end there. Grindr's ties to Beijing still jeopardize the privacy of everyone who uses the app. An investment group called San Vicente Acquisition LLC, formed just weeks before the Quanwen deal, now runs Grindr. James Liu, the chairman of the board of Grindr as of August 2021, is also the chairman of a Chinese investment firm majority owned by a Chinese city government. A recent Norwegian government report found that Grindr still shares data with the tech giant Tencent, a Chinese company with close ties to Beijing. Meanwhile, Grindr's user base keeps growing, from 3.8 million active daily users in 2018 to more than 4.5 million in 2020. Quanwen, which had paid $245 million for its 98% stake in Grindr, sold the firm less than 3 years later for $608 million. An impressive gain. All of this is despite Grindr's abysmal privacy controls. Not going to sugarcoat this, Mozilla Foundation researchers wrote in a February 2021 review of 24 popular dating apps' privacy and security. Of all the dating apps we reviewed, Grindr is the worst of the worst. Unlike TikTok, the Chinese-owned viral video app, Grindr collects information about its users that couldn't be more personal. Grindr in 2022, wholly owned by an American firm and vetted by CFIUS, is more of a security threat than it was several years ago. Questions like those raised by the Grindr saga are being asked in boardrooms, Hollywood studios, government offices, and universities across America. How much access to the American market should Chinese firms get? Are private Chinese firms more or less dangerous than state-owned ones? How did American entities get so entangled into the Chinese system? How worried should we be about those who willingly or unwillingly aid the party in America? Grindr's chairman is Chinese American. How does one address the issue of problematic ties to Beijing without stigmatizing or discriminating against Asian Americans? How do we stop Americans from spreading party propaganda without impinging on their freedom of speech? Does the economic benefit of partnering with Chinese institutions outweigh the political and national security costs? And most important, where should we draw the line? America Second is a book about the pernicious aspects of the party's influence in America. And it's a book about how to fight back without being Trumpian or racist. Tactics like exposing unethical and illegal U.S. corporate behavior in China, partnering with American allies, educating Americans about threatening party ministries like the United Front, restricting American institutions' ability to support the genocide in Xinjiang, and not stigmatizing Chinese Americans. For decades, Beijing successfully incentivized many elite Americans to strengthen China at the cost of America. In targeted and sophisticated ways, American policy needs to remove those incentives, and it needs to contain China and weaken the party's global influence. I'm pro-China inasmuch as one can be for or against any country, especially one as massive and multifaceted as China. I lived in China for 6 years, mostly in Beijing, but also in Shanghai, Hong Kong, and the northeastern city of Harbin. I visited all of its 22 provinces, its 4 municipalities, its 5 questionably named autonomous regions, including Xinjiang and Tibet, the special administrative regions of Hong Kong and Macau, and the country of Taiwan, which Beijing has long disingenuously claimed. But I am anti-party. I would love to live in China again, and when the party is finally excised from leadership, perhaps I will. Chinese officials love to remind Americans that China has 5,000 years of history, but the party has ruled for only 72 of those years, far less time than many of the dynasties that preceded it. One of the many tricks the party plays is convincing both Chinese and Americans that its rule over China is inevitable. It's not. The party exercises its influence over America quite differently than the Russian President Vladimir Putin's regime does. Instead of engendering chaos to weaken America, the party works in quieter ways, in ways that attract less attention and intrigue. More than anything else, it speaks the soft language of corruption. For many years, the party has seduced and corrupted certain individual Americans and their companies and agencies. The list of individuals is long and unfortunately distinguished. Jimmy Carter, Madeleine Albright, the Disney CEO Bob Iger, and the former Chicago mayor Richard M. Daley have all advanced the party's interests in America. In early 2017, U.S. counterintelligence officials warned Trump's aide and son-in-law Jared Kushner that Wendy Dung Murdoch, a naturalized American citizen and the former wife of the press baron, may be working to further the interests of the Chinese government. People like Carter, Albright, and Iger further the interests of Beijing, but they almost certainly do so unintentionally, which makes it more effective and more dangerous. This is a book about greed and compromises, and the strange forms that influence can take. This is a book about how the Walt Disney Company helped destroy the Tibet movement, and how Steven Seagal and Mike Tyson spread party propaganda. Perhaps, most surprisingly, I focus on one major figure in the American establishment and how well he served the party. In his decades-long reign as America's most famous statesman, Henry Kissinger has been called many things. Senator John McCain called him the world's most respected individual. The novelist Joseph Heller called him an odious schlump who made war gladly. Xi Jinping, China's leader, calls him an old friend of the Chinese people. But the most accurate way to describe Kissinger from the time he started his consulting company in 1982 to the present is as an agent of Chinese influence. He may be one of the most brilliant Americans of the 20th century, and a former intelligence agent himself, but he should have been more careful. When reached for comment, a Kissinger representative denied that Kissinger was an agent of Chinese influence and called the allegation libelous. Kissinger's relationship with
Sample complete. Ready to continue?